Why don't you tell us a little bit about this building and what the city is currently doing?
It's now owned by the city. They took it over from the World Trade Center folks. It was built in 1960, or completed in 1967. There are 33 stories, and the city did an RFP, request for proposal. There was 3 companies or entities that bid on it. One was a bunch of hospitality executives in New Orleans, and they wanted to take down the building and turn most of it into a public park. And the second idea was came from a company called Gatehouse, and then there was a third bidder. Gatehouse Capital out of Dallas won their proposal, which is they're now negotiating with the city. The exact details calls for they would lease the building from the city for 99 years. They would retrofit the World Trade Center, which is now vacant, and the bottom 12 floors would be a W hotel, and then the next 20 or so floors would be luxury apartments. If Gatehouse Capital indeed is the developer, an important issue that I raised in a story last week for the Lens was, well, after 5 years, that World Trade Center, those apartments could be turned into condos. And why? It's because the Gatehouse Capital is proposing to do a $190 million project. To retrofit the World Trade Center would cost $190 million. And of that $190 million, $75 would be provided by taxpayers through what are called historic, state and federal historic tax credits. And so then the cost of the developer is maybe only $115 million or so. And also those tax credits expire after 5 years, and at that point they can turn those apartment buildings and sell them as condos. And given the prices of condos in that neighborhood, the developer Gatehouse Capital could make a lot of money, over $100 million. So the question I raised in my story for the Lens was, in the negotiations that the city is about to carry out with Gatehouse for the financial terms for the lease, should the city also say, hey, Gatehouse, if you guys have a lot of upside with that by selling those apartments as condos 5 years after you open up, shouldn't the city get a portion of that? One of the questions is, well, should the city get lease money every year that should be updated based on the value of the land from Gatehouse, or should they just get a single payment that then Mayor Landrieu could and the city council could decide how to spend now and then no more money, or should the city also insist on maybe a portion of the profits from the condo sales?
It's interesting, like I say, for those who don't know the location of the World Trade Center, Steve, you kind of showed it on the map, but it certainly is in the thriving growth area, one of the hottest spots in not just in New Orleans, but the whole South. The warehouse district, which just abuts that area, is just grown by leaps and bounds, all kinds of new restaurants opening it up. I've got some friends that are building some condos down there, and they say they can't develop them and restore them fast enough because of the demand. Casino, the Hilton, the Riverwalk, that certainly is the high growth area in all of New Orleans, and whatever they build is probably going to be a success. Again, we come back to the same questions that Tyler's asking in his article. Is the city getting the best bang for the buck? And apparently the jury's still out on that right now.
Well, the city is beginning the negotiations now to find out exactly how much they are going to demand from Gatehouse, which obviously from its side wants to pay as little as possible to the city.
So it's not totally a done deal, am I correct? The other parties who had made a bid might still be able to, even if there is no lawsuit, might still be able to get back into the game if there's no agreement?
Yeah, exactly. So the next step, now that the city has chosen Gatehouse, they've chosen Gatehouse to negotiate with to try to come to terms on a deal, and it's quite possible that the city will say that they really will say that it's worth more than Gatehouse is willing to accept. In other words, whereas Gatehouse says, we'll just make you a single $10 million payment and then we get the building for 99 years, the city may say we want $25 million or we want $10 million, but you have to give us annual lease, a certain percentage of your lease payments. You'll have to payments in form of lease. And Gatehouse could say, we won't accept that. And if that happened, you could just end up with a new RFP again. I can't remember how long the building has been vacant, but it's been a number of years, maybe 10, 12 years, I'm guessing. And so, there's a chance to get different things going in the city of New Orleans that have where it's been underutilized. And there's some other stuff, with the World Trade Center, Spanish Plaza. Really not a lot happens there, so the hope is to fix that up and make it a more interesting place by extending basically the French Quarter, because of the heavy demand of tourists on the French Quarter, if you can get them out of the French Quarter. And also there's the ferry building there, which acts as a way of blocking Woldenberg Park and the French Quarter from Spanish Plaza. So if you could take that down, and the ferry is now right now is being made only for pedestrians, so you probably don't need that big ferry landing entrance. So if you could take that down, that would open up the riverfront even more. And meanwhile, downriver, the city is completing a park downriver from Elysian Fields, and so there's a lot of neat things that are happening along the river. The convention center, they want to expand into some of the vacant area that's just upriver from the convention center. So as I said, there's a lot of stuff happening in New Orleans today.